Art. Awesome. All right, so I just hit record. So welcome again, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience as we got all our technical issues sorted out. Really excited to connect with you today, Stephanie. So I will let you introduce yourself and say hello to everyone. And I thought I would say, just to kind of set some expectations for the session we have. We want this to be a conversation. We're really just wanting to share better stories about engineering, and we love Stephanie's story. And so please feel free to use the chat feature if you like, or there's not that many of us on the call today, so you're welcome to just unmute yourself and jump in if you have questions or comments to share. So thanks again for being here, Stephanie.
Well, thank you for having me. Sorry for the everyone. I'm glad everybody was interested in having a chance to join. So just to introduce myself, I'm Stephanie Thompson. I'm an engineer and have been for over 20 years now, which I think in and of itself is a bit of a feat, knowing the kind of status of where the world is going nowadays. I am a mom, so there's a little bit of that I bring to the puzzle-solving piece as I go through the world. And one of my big fascinations in life and my passions is really in helping others. I developed that through some of the extracurricular, I'll call it, the community work I've done with First Robotics and some of the other organizations that I've met along the way. So I really, enhance, let's say, my engineering career by the work that I can connect to technically out in the community. Through my job, which is at General Motors of Canada, I've had a lot of opportunities to be part of things like STEM funding committees, women in manufacturing, women's councils, and a lot of those pieces of a puzzle kind of help me tell the story of women's place, not just in STEM, but in the greater good of jobs and society as well. So I've kind of seen a little bit of every piece of that puzzle. And the storytelling really comes around that it's not one industry, it's not one area, it's really all areas that need help. We need to break down barriers wherever we can. And so I try to be an advocate in those areas when possible. I love to talk to students, I love to talk to women, I love to help look at what their objectives are and break down and really try to plan strategies that allow them to be successful. This year I was pretty fortunate in receiving an award. It was the top 100 most powerful women in Canada. And even that takes a little bit of practice to say without kind of cringing. I think, as women, we just have to kind of take ourselves out of that spotlight. And so definitely on my radar to keep practicing that. So it sounds really comfortable coming in. I think that's one of the ways in which we can all connect is that we feel that there's that sense of kind of, shying back from those types of accolades and awards. And so, my role is to continue to do better for myself as I do to advocate for others. So a little bit of my journey and how I got into STEM. I'm originally from Ottawa, and so one of the pivotal points, I think, too, in my life that really set the tone for, where I went into the future was I remember being a little kid and my dad introducing me to kind of bugs and insects and, letting them play on my hands, especially spiders. We love to play with daddy long legs in the backyard. And I think that sense of, being kind of recognized for being brave, for being proud of doing something, even at a young age, was really fundamental to kind of my journey and career. I love to do stuff that allowed people to say, like, good job, oh, you're so brave for doing that. And I really will thank my dad for kind of introducing me as the beginning. And from bugs, it grew into other things and other types of bravery aspects. And I think that was really key, just kind of founding or creating a foundation that allowed me to kind of jump even when nobody was there to watch. When I was in high school, I got a really great opportunity when I was in grade 11 chemistry. So another awesome adult in my life was my chemistry teacher, and she selected me to go to a Chalk River, it's a nuclear power plant near Ottawa. It was a research facility. It's been shut down the last 2 years, but they're responsible for making a ton of research gains in nuclear engineering. They produce all the medical radioactive material that gets used in tracers for medicine and hospitals. And so by spending the 4 days and one, getting selected to go on that endeavor, and two, spending the time with scientists, shadowing and doing some research projects with them, I kind of got that sense that I was good at this. I could be good at chemistry, and perhaps this is something that was a path for me. So I think, in anyone's life, there's a quote that I like to use from Flora Cash, which is a recent kind of songwriter. I see a part of you that only when you're older you will see too. And I think it's really responsibility of the adults in most kids' lives that can help them get the bravery, get the confidence, pick up the stuff that makes them proud of what they do, and distinguish yourself from your peers. I think without that sense of accomplishment, it's really hard to kind of take those leaps and jump forward. And then just a little piece of kind of where I am now. This is actually my old house, but this is my life right now. This is our games room and the fun we get to have. So my husband and my daughter, this is a place and a space where we get to play and create. And I'm hoping that I'm giving her a passion for technology, for game design, for building, for creating, for puzzles, in a way that allows her to kind of grow and have that sense of confidence in herself. So, foundations are really important. Having that base of knowing that you've got some solid ground to step on, and I was really lucky that way. Looking back, you don't always know or appreciate it, but I'm really glad that I had kind of the foundations of being able to try new things, and that really carried me through for most of my career. I'm not afraid to get into something new. I like to break down that problem solving of seeing what's out there, seeing what the world has to offer. Whether it's working on a construction crew, I work with Habitat, working with robotics, working with students. Some of the stuff that I'm doing kind of as the adult phase in terms of economic planning and getting invested into the community that I live in, all kind of tells a powerful story that hopefully is a piece of an even bigger puzzle. So what I love to talk to with students is the idea of everybody has their superpower. And if you go into the kind of next slide, I'm going to tell you the story, and these two really kind of resonate me. And the character on the left is Spider-Man. It's Miles Morales for anybody that follows comic books. And Miles is a young, African student who grows up through the universe of Spider-Man and becomes him through all sorts of paths that he wouldn't have predicted. But when I first came to this character, it wasn't actually through the comic book, but a story I heard from a comic book store owner. So in this store, there was a young boy who was really excited about superheroes. He happened to be, Black. So the store owner asked him, "Well, who is your favorite superhero?" And the young boy says, "Well, Spider-Man." And the comic book store owner says, "Well, do you know about Miles Morales and his story?" The little boy didn't. So he introduced him to this character. And the first thing that the little boy says is, "Mommy, he looks just like me." And there's something to be said for representation in any topic, in anything. We typically connect most with the characters and the people that we see that look so much like us because they can sympathize, they can understand our struggles and our journeys. I like to include Spider-Gwen on the right there, a young girl who's also in the Spider-Verse, because she looks more like me than probably any other character. And as we go through, I think what comic books have learned and are doing a great job of now are telling the inclusive story in a way that we've never seen before. There's characters who have all sorts of backgrounds and histories. They all have different superpowers, which I think is really great because isn't it a microcosm of what we all have? Every person that comes into STEM has a different superpower. And it's okay that you're different than me and that I'm different than Rebecca because it really doesn't matter. On a team, when you're problem solving, when you're breaking down, something that's really tough, it's way better to have your, kind of crew of truly different skill sets because that's how problems become, smaller than just one person can solve. And so I always kind of come back to these two stories of how superpowers really equate to skill sets and skills development. And it's not that everybody is born that way. Some of these people and some of us, we have to develop the skills. I like to think of, basketball players. Not everybody's going to play in the NBA, but it's okay that you play rec. It's okay that you just have a net in your backyard. STEM is very similar. You don't have to be at the number one only, Einstein or character that you want to connect with. You can just be a good hobbyist. You can just love STEM. You can do it recreationally. You can have a job doing it. But it really says that everybody can participate in STEM, and everybody's going to have different skill sets and abilities, and that's what really makes us kind of unique. More and more I hear of, girls or young people who say, I'm terrible in math, I'm not good in physics. And the answer is maybe one, you are, because very much we're very harsh on ourselves, and we definitely don't give ourselves enough credit. But two, sometimes it's okay that you're not good at one particular aspect. It's probably not the way you're going to spend your whole career. You're going to find some area that you absolutely love, and that's what you're going to spend your time doing. You might get through the other pieces and might need to develop that skill, but it's not to say that you will spend all your time. So many of the topics that we delve are very deep and rich, and it's really about that richness and finding one that you connect with. The next slide is one that really still makes me angry. The idea of this girl's life. The one on the right, from April 2016, so again, we're still about 5 years into it, is kind of an artist's rendition of what it could look like. And as I'm raising a young daughter, I really get frustrated with the fact that we preach to girls too much about things that are so inconsequential. And don't matter and are fleeting, and yet that becomes a huge part of our personalities, how we spend our time. We have a society that very much focuses on relationships of women as well in this aspect. So whether it's celebrities or not, the majority of us spend time with our girlfriends doing things like spa days or going shopping, or I've got some really wonderful kind of best friends from university, two mathematics and one in science. We've never connected on STEM, and I think, why is that? We've got 4 talented STEM women. Why have we never exercised kind of STEM hobbies to hang out together? We've never built a robot together. We've never played video games together. We've never tried to, do a science experiment together. And I think, isn't that sort of the same, that we've never taken the stuff that we loved in school and in our jobs and connected to each other that way? So I'd love to see a world where, girls and young people are getting pushed and aspire to more and more hobbies, to create technical skills, because one of the real big deficits is when you come out of school, in my opinion, guys always seem to have done this before. They've played with cars, they've built robots, they've tinkered with technology in a way that girls typically don't have access to. And so if we don't have access to that information at a younger age, we're always a little bit behind. And how do you get confidence in yourself if you feel like you're out of the loop, or everybody knows something more than you do? And I think that's the essence of where I want to try to fix, is try to develop skills, very hands-on, play in the mud, play with bugs, do those things that if you've never done them, then I want to help you do them, whether you're 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 years old. I want to help fix that kind of sense that STEM is something that's separate from our everyday lives. I'd love to include this leaky pipeline graphic in the next. It's produced by Ennui. University of Waterloo was the one that kind of first put it out. And I kind of circled the idea of these puddles. So what really is evident of this is that girls stop taking science after grade 10. The ratio goes from 50-50 to that kind of 35-65 split. And that ratio never gets better. Actually, it's worse after grade 12 when girls leave high school going into university. But what happens to all those people that fall out of STEM? I've always wondered, where did they go? Were they not, good at it and maybe it wasn't for them? Or were they truly just people who didn't have the support networks, the confidence, the opportunities? Nobody asked them to go on an overnight retreat. Where did they go? And is there a way to get them back into STEM? I put a quote at the bottom here. Was Erica Evans is a producer of a video game company locally here. And she says, after falling backwards in the STEM, I now try to shovel more people into the funnel. And essentially that's what I'm trying to do, but it's very hard. It's more effort to get you back in once you've fallen out. So I love that there's so many programs, like Rebecca's, all the stuff that's aimed at young girls today. I never saw those programs. I don't think they existed when I graduated 20 years ago. And I think they're phenomenal. I think they're really awesome in terms of building confidence and skills, because they're recognizing that if the money isn't there, if the fundamentals, if the program's not there, the girls won't be either. Now, the other side is, I want to make sure that at the end of this, when you guys graduate high school and you come out into the real world, that there's people on the other side to kind of bring you along too. And so, I've been using in the next sign, like, my motivation is twofold. I'm proud of women and high school girls, but I want to know in 10 years that you guys, that there's somebody in the middle, because my daughter's not going to listen to me. We all know we don't listen to our parents. So 10 years, my daughter's going to be, in grade 9 and 10, and I need to make sure that the programming is there to help support her, that, if you're currently, a 24-year-old girl or a 14-year-old girl, 10 years from now, you're going to be sitting on panels, you're going to be running your own companies, you're going to be hiring co-op students, and I need you guys to be their vision of what women in STEM look like, so that she can continue down her STEM path that I set her on when she stopped, listening to what mom has to say. So over the last few years, I've been doing a lot of workshops. I've been running a lot of skills development sets for women. And what I've learned is that there is an audience there. There's a lot of women that want to go out into fun environments, get their hands dirty, in a way that maybe they just don't know how to break down that barrier, to join new things, to try, to build robotics, to look at environmental science in a different way. I've had, astrophysicists come and give talks, but use things like chocolate powder and flour to emulate, crashes of asteroids on the moon. It's really about the talk is that, there's a lot of people that have big titles, that are considered, experts in their field, and sometimes I think STEM seems too far away from us. It seems like it's something that other people do, or that you have to have a title. And the simple answer is, like anybody knows that's graduated, you don't necessarily do a job in the field that you studied. The studying comes after you've graduated. So you take the opportunity to go and learn new things. So the workshop series I run are fun, practical, hands-on. They're not high-powered. There's no stress. You won't come out of them feeling like you don't know or you don't belong. You'll come, have fun. There's always a takeaway or a take-home. So homework assignment, whether it's build or make something with your family, your friends. And I want you to go home with something that shows what you've done. So whether it's a gadget you're going to plug into your desk and you're going to tell your coworkers that you built that, or you're going to go home and talk to your kids about the science experiments that you run, and brag to them about you just, beat the robot wars. All of these things are skills and confidence builders. And the more we can take those confidences and feel good about the stuff that we do, I think the better off we can all feel as we go through life. So hopefully these puddles will go away and start drying up. Hopefully the ones that just want to stay in it because they love it will not think about it as a way to need to have a title or a piece of paper that says you can do it, but that you look at the world in a different way that says, I wonder what's out there, and I wonder how I can, use experiments and scientific knowledge to discover new things that ultimately bring joy and happiness in your everyday life.
So amazing. I mean, I really appreciate listening to everything you have to say, Stephanie. You always get me thinking, and asking some really great questions. I can totally relate to you. My one of my own, I'm hesitating to say mentor, but maybe inspirations, was my chemistry teacher as well. He was one of those guys that got up on the desks and blew stuff up, and I was like, this is cool. And I would say
the first real STEM professional you meet. They're the first grown-up STEM that you have access to.
Yeah.
And it's what can make or break, I think, the conversation.
Absolutely. And I tell people all the time that I'm a living, breathing success story of STEM outreach. My parents were teachers. I had no one around me other than that. I mean, I had some great teachers. Um, but my diligent parents signed me up for a science and engineering camp. And so when I was young, I was fortunate enough to get exposure in that way. Hello.
Well, good friend.
Yay.
How
Uh,
this is Amelia. Amelia's 4.
Hi, Amelia.
You're 4 3/4. I got
Yeah.
it. Very
Yeah, so I was so fortunate to have the ability to go to I actually went to Science Quest which was at one of the first, I think, STEM camps. It wasn't called a STEM camp at way back then. It was just something for your kids to do in the summer. But that for me was a big piece of the puzzle, and I really connected emotionally. As I reflect back, I can't remember what activities we did or what we built or what we made, but I remember how much fun I had and how excited I was to go. So it's so important, like you said, to have these kind of role models and opportunities for everyone to be able to experience STEM in these ways.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to just remind everyone, if you wanted to ask Stephanie a question, you're welcome to take yourself off mute or put something in the chat. I'm just going to see. I don't know if I have to. I think you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So, I love everything you said, and I love like the idea of like when you're holding spiders in your hand, and your parents said, "Oh, that's so brave," and so I definitely feel like I had that too growing up. People be like, "Oh, you're like math, you're good at science, like that's so rare," and it definitely made you feel special, and that kind of like pushed you towards, finding that validation more. But then when I reached university, I realized like a lot of my female counterparts kind of had the same thing, and that's why they were in engineering. But then suddenly, that was the only reason why they were in engineering. So I guess I don't have kids. So I guess how would you like make sure you balance that with your daughters or with other children that you work with to make sure that you almost don't pressure them into being special and above and beyond? This is like a very deep question. So I don't expect you to have all the answers, but like how should I talk to some kids I know in my life and make sure I don't pressure them too hard?
I think it's a great question.
Yeah. There's no really good answer.
Yeah.
Well, I heard this recently. Someone I heard recently, and it was a good reminder. I've heard it before. Is that, and Stephanie, you were talking a lot about being proud and your dad encouraging you, and how brave you were. And I don't know if you picked up on it, but the language, I think, is nuanced. He wasn't maybe necessarily saying I'm proud of you, but he was saying you should be proud of yourself, and you're so brave. And that's one tip I've heard that I think I have 3 kids of my own as well, and I try and put that into practice instead of saying to them, "Wow, I'm so proud of you. Great job." I try and shift it and say, "Wow, you should be so proud of yourself. You worked so hard on that. Oh, that's amazing." So there's a little something you can give that a try. And I think, I mean, just being real and honest with them, they want to see you as a person, as a human, and be relatable, right? I mean, Stephanie, you talked about the cartoons as role models and seeing yourself in other people, and just that alone has a really powerful effect. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I think the landscape is definitely changing. I think, the information and the resources and all the stuff they have to do and to have fun and to, build it into every day, I think is really powerful. It's like I said, you just walk into your backyard and you can have a STEM opportunity, and really it's just about kind of being open-minded to asking questions and seeing what where the interest lies. I think every kid's going to have a different interest level. I think they're going to have a different insightful level. And then they ask you great questions that you don't even know. And what, then you have to go do more research to figure out how to get yourself out of that hole when you don't have the information. But I think it's about teaching how to learn, how to be querying, and how to see the world. There's a great quote, I think it's Neil deGrasse Tyson, that says that kids are born scientists and we're the ones that take it away from them. They have natural curiosity to see the world. And if we could figure out how to keep that curiosity, the world would be a better place.
Yeah, so true. And I think another powerful word is and. So, engineering is hard and you can do it. And like Stephanie, you were saying, like the girls start dropping out, maybe math isn't your strongest subject. And I love the analogy you were using of, the professional basketball players. And we happen to have a very deep love in this household for hockey, so we tend to talk about the hockey players and draw analogies between hockey and STEM. And you don't have one superstar on a hockey team or a basketball team, right? You don't have that one guy who can score the goals, he can be the goalie, he can play defense. No, that's not how it works. You have specialized roles. So you have that one person maybe that's great at math, that's your goalie, and someone else who can score the goals, and that's your person who really loves the physics. And I think that word "and" is helpful because it kind of speaks to the motivation. So the motivation, I think, has to be there, right? Because it is hard work, and so you have to be able to be willing to put that hard work in to get those rewards.
The other thing is that I think our exposure through media is always that intelligence always kind of comes with this kind of madness, or anybody that's really great and creative is going to have kind of a hard life. We think of the geniuses, the savants that end up shunned in a corner, or they have a terrible life, or something bad happens to them. Like, there always seems to be that bit of really focusing on very, very small end of the spectrum in terms of what it represents, whether it's Turing or Einstein or Marie Curie, or all these stories seem to kind of have these tales of woe. And the media and the movies glorify that struggle. But there's also tons of everyday people that just live their lives and have very fulfilling, normal careers. But if you're sitting at home and you watch these people, your first thing is, oh, I'm never going to be as smart as that Nobel-winning prize person, or I'm not as good as, right? Because you only see one in a million. You don't see the others. So there's a lot of stuff going on, million STEM members and million STEM minds, and it's trying to get the idea that there are everyday people that are just normal, that have families, that just love to do things, and they're not one-dimensional. They like hockey, or they play sports, or they have hobbies like board games, or they watch movies. And it's truly a field and an area that really is for everyone. There is so much vastness to the world. Even in like something as simple as math, and I hear grade 9, grade 10 girls all the time are telling me I'm bad at math. Well, how are you doing in your class? Well, I'm getting 95. Okay, well, but there's certain aspects. Math is not one thing. There's maybe 10 different aspects, spatial and whatever. And so if you look at which aspects you're good at, well, you're good at 9 out of them. Maybe you're bad at 1. We typically always remember the stuff that we're bad at, and we always focus on the stuff we're bad at. And everybody's bad at something. I mean, except for those maybe 1% or the very, very small percent of the population. But I like the storytelling around just kind of average people who live their life, do their job, do a lot of great stuff for the world. And maybe they're not getting movies made after them, and we never hear about them. So the more we can tell those stories. My story, for example, is very straightforward. It's nothing fancy. I wasn't... there was no movie going to be made after my life, for sure, and that's okay, right? It's okay to just be a person in the world.
I'm laughing, Stephanie, because I know that the call we tried to have last week and had to reschedule, there was a woman that joined and she was an author and she said you're in her book. So you're in a book, Stephanie.
But it is like perseverance and hard work and communicating and skills that typically are attributed to the engineer, right? So, if you think of, they always tell the story that you ask a child to picture a scientist and they always draw a man in a lab coat, or the joke about, the doctor, it turns out she's a woman, and all these kind of historical things that think of the stereotypes that go along with anything. I think more and more the stereotypes are breaking down. We're hearing about using technology to learn about the stories of women you don't know about. And I usually did like Facebook, let's call it, but I love to connect with all these amazing women, and I like to ask them their stories, and I like to hear from the doctor / astronaut / aquanaut who is doing crazy things in the world. And sometimes they have doubt. I was talking to one lady the other day. She's renowned as a mathematician. She's all over, and yet she went on to a game show and she got the math question wrong. And she thought, oh my God, how horrible is that? But she rallies. Like, we all fail. We all get embarrassed. We all do silly things or make mistakes or have blunders. But I think you're right, like a hockey with the perseverance, kind of getting back up, getting back in the game, and not letting those one things knock you off your course. There's a lot of people out there that should love STEM, could stay in STEM, and I think we all got to kind of make sure that we kind of include them in the conversation.
What do you think, Stephanie, about the kind of the motivation behind having more diversity in a more diverse population, I'll say, of STEM professionals? So I think sometimes I know myself, because I have this conversation with a lot of people a lot of the time. I kind of assume that others are already there and they get it. They get why that's important. But I think it's always a good reminder. Like, why is it important to have a diverse population of STEM professionals?
Well, I will give you my example. I'll have to study it. I don't have the source in front of me, but the study watched a group of teammates, those groups working together on problem solving. And the group that was, say, homogeneous in nature, similar thinking, similar backgrounds, did okay on the challenge, got along with each other, got to the direction really well, understood the objective, and produced okay results. But they felt really good about themselves. They high-fived and they connected and they thought the same way. And so they left the feeling that everything was great. They studied them and compared them to like non-homogeneous groups, so a group that was mixed and diverse and had lots of background. Well, they had lots of challenges. They had communication issues, and they had to kind of bring everybody to the same page because everybody came from different perspectives. And so all throughout the challenge, they struggled. They felt like they weren't getting as much accomplished, but they actually succeed and have way better results in a team environment than the homogeneous group. The difference is, though, they feel like they don't. They feel like constant strife and not having the right tools holding them back from performing. So I think this is, our perception of what inclusivity means. You want to create groups that not just strive to lose ground. You want to have a little bit more support network to make sure that they're successful. But you also don't want to kind of rest that you feel like you're doing good just because everybody's getting along. It's not how innovation happens. It's not how change happens. So the best performing teams are the ones that are non-homogeneous. And as a manager or as somebody who works in an organization that's trying to bring somebody forward, you really want to make sure that this group is supported so that the debate is professional and stays on course. But if you can do that, you can drive your organization and the groups that work together that much farther. And so I think that's really the microcosm of inclusivity is knowing that, the best minds with the best number of people with the creative thinking are really what's going to solve the challenges. And as we know this year, this world has challenges. And I'm hoping that the young kids and the young STEM minds are looking around them and saying, how do I want this world to be, and how can I be a part of that? There's some huge opportunities, and probably a lot of positives going to come out as the aftermath of the last several months, because people are starting to question the whys around them, and they're getting excited, and they're getting fired up, and they're getting angry about something that isn't just, and that can be very good for a society that doesn't feel it's just homogeneous, and that it's trying to just do a pretty good job. I think we can do better than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, like, how many examples have we seen over the last year of diverse thinkers, diverse cultures, diversity in general having to come together and work on solving a global challenge? It's really just right in front of our faces right now. Does anyone else have any other questions for Stephanie? I see. Yasmin, did you have a question? I see you took your mute off. I don't know. Audio is not our friend today if that's working. You're also welcome to use the chat. Oh, sorry, your mic went off. I see you put it in the chat. If you want to put your question in the chat, you're welcome to do that.
Thank you. Well, that's the nice thing. If you think, like, I'm sure everybody's feeling strained and stressed. I mean, I am. The world is. The last time we kind of felt these kind of stresses globally, it's usually because of wars. And if you go back to, the Cold War in the 60s, and the Americans and the interaction with Russia and the stress that created, some of the best minds and most creative things that changed technology were in the aftermath of that. The internet got created and technology got changed and computers kind of came to ground. So I think, those little kind of pockets in time where stress and friction and creation of that happens, the aftermath is that the world can kind of take the next leap forward in terms of advancement and civilization. The focus being medical right now, I can't imagine how many brilliant kids who are studying that learn, my 4-year-old knows more about germs than I've ever learned in my life, because it's just the world that they live in, right? They understand how they function. They know what, you can show them a little coronavirus and they know what it is just from the cartoon of it. They understand about hand washing. They understand these things. So I think that this is, like, there's a lot of possibilities that the world is going to get better in a short amount of time right after we go through these crazy times, because people have an inspiration to make the world better. And so if you're feeling, kind of overwhelmed right now, think about the fact that, the new or the next internet is coming towards us. And, maybe it's in the field of medical that we'll have so many advancements from all the inspiration we're seeing around us.
Yeah, great perspective. I can see you now, Yasmin. Is your mic working?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we just came to know Engineers of Tomorrow. Great initiative. Thanks, everyone. I'm happy to be here. So I just had a quick question. I'm an engineer in auto industry, started like 2-3 years ago, but what I've been observing constantly throughout, high school and then undergrad, grad school all the time is that I keep seeing this thing between my female peers that, we always, I think, waste so much resources and time and energy just to prove ourselves for points that really doesn't matter. Like, I mean, imagine like we want to overdo certain things and just achieve some sort of maybe abstract perfection that doesn't necessarily get us anywhere or doesn't give us results. And I think it's more of like at a subconscious level. So how do you perceive that? Like how would you approach that to fix it, to kind of like try to kind of maybe reverse engineer that problem and kind of like try to save the resources rather than trying to prove ourselves to someone or ourselves or something. It's just like do something. I don't know if that makes sense or if I could explain what I meant.
Absolutely. Do you have an answer there, Stephanie, or some thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, sometimes it talks about culture, you know, the work culture or the team culture that you're part of. And I always say to young girl, you know, there's fight and then there's toxicity. If it's toxic, sometimes you can't change that culture. It's really a chance to get out. But there's a problem if you're fighting too much or you're having to prove yourself too much. You know, maybe that industry just isn't ready for us at this point. And it's not to say that we all have to you know, give up battles, but sometimes it's not one person's battle to fight. I was listening to a lady who works for the YWCA, and I was kind of lamenting that it feels like we haven't gotten enough progress lately. You know, we're not moving fast enough. She says to me, Stephanie, she's like, when I was a girl, I never saw a female bus driver. She's like, it didn't exist. There was no such thing. No women had ever been a female bus driver. And I'm like, you're kidding. That's such a weird thing to not be. And she said, exactly. You will in your lifetime never know that there's never been a female bus driver. So she's like, it's changed and you're not even aware of it. So I think that's a bit of culture and what we're going through. You know, it's our fight. We're having to prove ourselves. And yes, there's definitely going to be some people burnt up along the way because, you know, is it always worth it? You know, there's always that personal sacrifice, the toll. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of industries where women are thriving and doing very well. There's a lot, if you look at the medical industry, we're currently graduating more doctors that are female than male. So you that tide, whenever the medical is done right, they're doing it. They've got the right piece. If you look at all the COVID, you know, across all the provinces and all the, you know, chief medical officers, we're all women, as you see, right? There's that heart amongst it. So if we can keep finding the heart in engineering, in industries, if we can focus on, you know, the problem solving and the solutions, it's not easy. I mean, I work in automotive, you know, very, very small percentage that are women. And, you know, I love to do these kind of things because I do love to meet other women who exist in other industries, right? It's how I, you know, continue to be inspired by the women who are breaking ground in things like software engineering and video game design and environmental and science and different fields that are attracting and, you know, bringing more women into the pipeline. So, I mean, it's not an answer, but I think there is hope.
I think
and I think it's always a personal balance of how much you fought and how much, you know, how much the industry just sometimes has to take some time to change.
I think it's great advice. Like, celebrate those wins because we can focus on the things that aren't going well, but being deliberately celebrating those wins and like you said, Stephanie, surrounding yourself with others that can kind of help you build up that community. To me, what it sounded like you were describing was stereotype threat. So that's, you know, the situation where you don't actually have to be under threat, but just the thought of it causes a change in your performance, and it can come out in many different ways. And so just being able to even put a name on it and then start, you know, just that awareness is a good step. And then I think that's great advice, Stephanie. And I'm just keeping a quick eye on the time here. This is such a great conversation, but I just wondered maybe if sort of along that same vein, Stephanie, if maybe you could leave us off with some pieces of advice or suggestions on actions that we can take to you know, help support more women or promote diversity and that sort of thing.
One of the things I really like lately, I heard somebody talk about it, having their own personal board of directors, and I like the idea that, you know, companies have these people who held you accountable to what you do. And so, you know, that's my mission is to establish this board of directors, people that not only just have my but are helping to move and change the industry in the way that I want to as well. So having talks like you connecting to engineers with Pro and other organizations who are all kind of on the same path, but to also hold ourselves accountable that there are challenges to fix. But if you figured out a solution and I figured out a solution, you know, I want us to work together so that it's collaborative and so that we're not all fighting the same conversation every single time. You know, what's good for engineers is good for scientists, is good for women in the industry, whether it's a trade, whether it's, the fact that their barriers exist is truly common across any industries. And so when a solution works for one, I want to be part of that communication that helps them learn. And I also want to be held accountable if something I'm doing isn't on the right path, to make sure that we continue to propel the conversation forward. So dialogue, sharing of stories, and focusing on everyday women, that it isn't somebody that's, untouchable on a pedestal, that truly women in your everyday life can have very successful stories in STEM to take them forward and hopefully inspire that next generation.
Awesome. Fantastic advice. Thank you so much again, Stephanie, for taking some time and everyone's patience for our technical difficulties. Stephanie, if others here wanted to find ways to connect with you, you mentioned LinkedIn, maybe you can let everyone know just the best way to, keep an eye on what you're doing.
Yeah, I think with a Facebook group, Women in STEM Experiences, where I'm publishing, articles and other things. So I'll type that in the chat. In the works right now. I'm hoping to put one on in May. So my series are always women in science, women in robotics, women in chemistry. And so the next one I've got scheduled in May is women in bionics. So we're going to be looking at a combination of kind of a yoga-based approach, breaking down body movement and mechanics, and looking at kind of robotic applications in the real world of how body movement works. So if you're kind of sitting at a desk and your body's sore, we're going to do some good movements to kind of do some of that, and then spin it with some STEM background guest speakers who take the understanding of body movement into the real world and have some practical applications, and hopefully have some fun that way. So there'll be some homework and some assignments. You're going to make something, you're going to build something as we go, and have some stuff to take home to understand and to break that stereotype down of what STEM is. I've got some other ones coming down, some ones in video gaming and electronics and some other stuff I hope to do in the real world one day, so we can meet and actually have these face-to-face conversations. But until then, we'll stay online and hopefully try to at least connect to each other in a way that perhaps women traditionally don't connect.
Awesome. I was fortunate enough to attend, I don't know if it's your last one, but it was a Women in Gaming one that you did. So much fun. So I can maybe put the link to the Facebook group or whatever the easiest way is in the link that I'll send out after, the email that I'll send out afterwards to everybody so that you can have a way to get in touch.
Yeah, email in the chat too, so step by step.
Awesome.
Super easy, but yeah, if there's things and ideas and explore, I'd love to chat and just see what the world looks like and your personal journey in any way.
Yeah, I love your idea of a personal board of directors. So cool. All right, so we're just coming up on 6 o'clock here. Thanks everyone so much for taking some time out of your busy days to connect with us. We really appreciate it. I hope you took something away from Stephanie's story today. She is a real relatable human being. So please feel free to share that and take the parts of that story that really connected for you. I want to take a quick second and say thank you to our sponsors at Engineers of Tomorrow. We are a not-for-profit, so it means so much to us that we are able to get some funding to be able to do the work that we do. So thank you to Woodbridge Group and Linamar and Smith & Anderson and Queen's Faculty of Engineering and Applied Science. And as always, and Stephanie, you kind of already mentioned you're very active on LinkedIn. We're super active on LinkedIn as well, so you're welcome to connect with us there. You can find us on pretty much all the major social media. Not TikTok though. I'm not on TikTok yet.
Not yet.
No. Yeah. So thanks again, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much.